involved and to participate, we feel isolated. And so a part of bringing about Christ consciousness is to strengthen communities through community awareness. This would be education in schools, participation in the community, in schools, and instilling a sense of community responsibility. So the more you're involved in your community in a positive way, the more you're going to feel responsible for taking care of it. And this community strength is one of the key components of Christ consciousness. It is the integrity of the whole through the parts. And Christ consciousness, we are consciousness, is a consciousness that permeates, societally. It's not one person, it's all people and all things. And so instilling this sense of community and community responsibility and community awareness is really one of the tied for the strongest components of Christ consciousness. And, okay. The next detail is taking care of the homeless. That's just a part of security, less crime, and it's not just crime, that's just one part. It's also just like, these people are part of our community, and we can't really fully thrive unless they're fully thriving, and they are a symptom of a widespread problems in the greater community of our country and of our world, which is what the next detail deals with is basically mental health. Part of mental health, or I guess reason why there's so many homeless people, is because people are mentally ill, but it's also it's a result of many interdependent factors, like diet and drug use, illegal and legal drugs, poor diet, eating lots of processed foods, and also like high cost of living leads to homelessness. It also leads to like stress, depression, anxiety. So there's a lot of reasons why there's homeless people, and it's because the lack of, I guess, wholesomeness in our world and in our communities overall. And so that leads into the next detail, which is a strong mental health program. So we've got to deal with like the mental health crisis we have in our communities, and I think it's worldwide. I know it's in the United States, but I think it's worldwide. And so why do we have this mental health crisis? Like I said before, it's diet. We're eating lots of processed foods. It's drug use, illegal and legal drugs. It's basically consuming things that don't fit well in our bodies. And another detail is high cost of living. This leads to homelessness. It leads to stress, and depression, and anxiety. And the next detail is part of mental health crisis is a disassociation of the self, and this is also due to like a lack of community support and just sort of like lack of general like goodness and cohesiveness in general. There aren't like clear positive ways for people to engage in life and in communities, and a lot of the input we're getting through television and the media is like chaotic, and instead of actually building the integrity of our minds and ourselves, it's actually fragmenting ourselves. It's actually taking away our personal power. So we actually end up dissociating from ourselves to live in society. And this is totally generally speaking, but it's still a huge reality. The thoughts that are going through our heads, they're really disconnected from sense. They're disconnected from health. They're disconnected from integrity. And so by engaging in them so that we can engage in the world, we end up breaking ourselves down. We end up disassociating from our feelings, from our identities. And this is a huge cause of mental illness, and it leads to drug use. It leads to negative bodily consumption. It leads to the things that lead to homelessness. And we need to have integrity of individuals. We need to have people that are building themselves up rather than breaking themselves down to have Christ consciousness. We need to grow our sense of self so that we develop a strength that we can use to engage in the community in a positive way, and to develop our critical thinking, to develop our feelings, to develop our awareness, so that we can realize the deeper truth of life. We can realize the oneness of all people and all things. And we can only do this through the integrity of our identities. We have to grow through our identities to realize the greater identity, the greater kinship of all people. And so that's why this is super important. And so little arrow points to more that I added to this. It's a lack of belonging, a lack of purpose, and a lack of general wisdom and goodness that's leading to disassociation. And another factor that's causing mental illness is the way we use technology. We're sort of just dumping it on ourselves, and we're not using it in a way that's positive. In a lot of ways, we're not thinking about the ramifications of what we're doing, and we're developing a lot of culture of like not thinking about the ramifications of our technology use. We just do it, and we don't think about if it's good or bad. And this has led to poor social skills, and is leading to this poor social skills, isolation, and disassociation. Like you can just see on just like social media, people create these fake identities. It's not really them, and they can do it because of the medium of technology. They wouldn't be as likely to do it if they're talking like one-on-one to someone, at least generally. And it's just easier through technology to create these false identities and to become more disassociated with your identity, your real identity. So it's led to disassociation, depression, anxiety, drug use, and general low self-esteem, just because people aren't like developing like authentic relationships, and they're not engaging in the world in a positive way. And the result of this is, poor mental health and mental illness. So that's it for strong mental health program. And the last detail I have is teach mindfulness, self-discovery, and feeling awareness in schools, in the community center, and at community events / locations. So that's just another way to bring Christ consciousness to society in general. We learn and we discover Christ consciousness through ourselves, through being mindful, through learning how to go within ourselves, through developing feeling awareness. And we can teach this in schools, we can teach this in a community center, and we can teach this at community events, like through classes and demonstrations and and like speeches and talks. And so mindfulness, self-discovery, and feeling awareness, these are all ways in which we cultivate we are consciousness, and they're essential ways. This is taking it from the individual to the, I guess you could say, metaphysical, or the transpersonal, or the divine. Taking your sense of self, your self-consciousness, and turning it inwards and also outwards to a sense that goes beyond who you are. This is sort of the second tier of it, is the whole subjective, not even subjective, but the whole, I would say, transpersonal dimension of Christ consciousness. You've got to develop the individual awareness, individual integrity, individual health, body health, and you've also got to develop, the awareness that goes beyond the individual to the sense of unity among all people and all things, to the whole. And it's that sense of the whole that is Christ consciousness, that is we are consciousness, that's trans-dogmatic. Yeah. And so I have 3 boxes on the left, and they are: have a community center where this is all practiced, and this is sort of like your island where you really have the true Christ consciousness practiced. And then from there, you shoot out roots to other communities, and you do this at the same time. I was thinking about this, I would think one of the ways you could do it is you have a community center in an existing town, and then you also start a community, basically on a property somewhere, with people that are already pretty awake. And then you build Christ consciousness from that already pretty much there Christ consciousness property, and then you also have the community center to spread it in the existing community to elevate the consciousness there. And I said it seems like it would be easier to build Christ consciousness from scratch, on the property, rather than to try and elevate and change existing communities with all their existing structures. Yeah, that's I already mentioned the 3rd box. So I think that's a good idea. And I was thinking, is imagining what it would be like if you actually had a town or a city that was in Christ consciousness that you developed from that property, and just how amazing it could be. Yeah. How by building this sort of island community of Christ consciousness that's sort of, in a way, separate from existing communities, you could really go a lot deeper into it in all the different ways. And you could have maybe reach a lot more influence and positivity that way. And this sort of leads into the 3rd page I have, which is, how do you create money or profit for the We Are community? How do you sustain this? And so you sustain this community center, this island, through participation in the world economy in a sustainable and holistic way. And this doesn't mean that you avoid technology because technology is bad. It means that you use it to the best of its ability. It means that you manufacture and develop new technologies. This is on the 3rd page. I didn't really say that. You develop new technologies that will have widespread demand, or do have widespread demand, and you do it with such intelligence of design and of efficient production that you create a product or technology that has high demand, and this generates a lot of profit. And that leads to the next factor, the next detail, which is manufacturing quality, desirable products. So this goes into the developing new technologies that have widespread demand. You create these products, any kind of product, technology, toiletries, textiles, produce, whatever, that has a widespread demand because it's something that's incredibly useful and that is developed in a really smart way. And also the factor of doing something in a wholesome way is going to generate demand in itself, and it has its own quality. Like organic food is desirable because of the health that it brings and because of the consciousness that it creates that people want to participate in. And you also just manufacture quality products. Anything of quality is desirable because it makes life easier and it's reliable. And the kind of energy that your island Christ consciousness, we are consciousness community is going to create is going to have a degree of quality that surpasses most other products out there. And so if you're making these products that are practical and also of great quality and of great integrity, they're just going to be super desirable. And another part of profit is services. Through Christ consciousness and through like holistic education, you can offer the services of counseling, of teaching how to have better business models. You can have really good research that you can hire out to people. You can hire out people from these communities, these Christ consciousness communities, to work for businesses to do really thorough and whole, like integral research into whatever technology, sociology, anything. And the integrity and the groundedness of their research is going to be to such a degree that it's going to be really desirable and really useful. And another service you can offer is you can have colleges and training programs in your island community, and also in regular communities. You can build these colleges and training programs, which will also be desirable because of the quality of the training and the education that you're going to provide. It's just going to outcompete other colleges and other training programs because the intelligence going into it is at such a deeper and integral level. And you could serve the government. You could help the government with intelligent integral planning and program creation. So it's just, again, the quality and the holistic thinking and the depth of these Christ consciousness individuals is going to be so desirable for any kind of business or government in terms of planning and creating programs. And the last detail is building, constructing homes, sustainable yards, sustainable anything. Anything that you build from a really thought out, top to bottom, integral Christ consciousness mindset is going to be way better in the long run compared to anything else. So anything you build is going to be, it's going to be stronger, it's going to be more sustainable, it's going to be more practical, more energy efficient. There's going to be a better product. So these are all different ways that you can create money for the We Are community, either for a community center or for an island community. And so eventually The idea is not just to have one island, but to have islands all over the planet. Have these communities and these community centers all over the planet, and it's not like they're isolated from each other. The goal is we are consciousness. It's that all of these communities and islands are not only working for themselves and their communities, but they're also working and developing connections between the islands, between the community centers. And there's the individual island identity, but then there's also equally strong the this statewide island connection, and the national island connection, and the international island connection. You're building a network throughout the whole world of these islands and these community centers, and you're developing communication within the islands and within these local communities as much as you're developing communication trans communities, trans islands. And so you don't only change the local community, but you end up building this international, across country network of people that are dedicated to Christ consciousness. And it's not just communication, but it's a sharing of resources, it's a sharing of technology. It's really a one community that you're creating. It's not a lot of different communities working together, but it's really you're creating one international we are community, and that is the ultimate goal. I will write more on this later. And this is just one aspect of it. It's sort of the logical thinking aspect of it, and there's a lot of different ways. There's also spontaneous and the individual dimension of creating Christ consciousness, and there's the intuitive aspect of doing it through feeling rather than thinking. And so these are all things that I'm writing about on this blog. So anyway, hope you enjoyed this. Yeah, take care.